Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we're still muted. So we're okay.
Oh,
we're still muted.
yeah.
I should probably go too.
I would just say, is your screen? I don't think you can see your screen.
Let's see. Okay.
But like, this is showing the audience view.
Oh, I see.
So, I think maybe this one is it.
There we go. Good call.
Okay, so that's that. Okay.
Everybody's muted and we're muted. I know, right? How many people are listening to? Okay, what else? Don't want. Okay. Audio. We're muted. Okay. Dashboard.
Wait, who's talking?
Oh. Audience view. Oops. Oh. It only has us going for the 60 minutes. Well, I'm sure we can stay in there after that. It's fine, we're only a minute.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying it says duration 60 minutes with a timer, but I'm assuming it won't kick us out after that. Which is probably for the FYI. This is interesting.
What's going on with that thing?
Oh,
There's a chat message.
oh, there's Brad. Okay. There he is. Okay. Oh wait, oh my god. Did I send that to the whole thing? Oh my god. Wait. He sent it in a private chat. Why did it go to everybody? Oh, wait, maybe it didn't yet. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, well maybe everyone's gonna see this. Are we still muted? Okay. This is stressful, you guys. Because he sent it to me. Why did it go to everyone?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
You definitely saw it.
So you can speak. Okay, well, whatever. It's okay. They didn't say anything weird.
Yep.
Okay. Wait, so then how do we manage the... That's the chat. Okay, here's the questions. Okay, so I guess if they put a question...
Brett was in chat.
Yeah, he was in chat.
And you can...
Okay, so somebody just said, hey, man.
Oh, okay, they started. Okay, I'm started.
Okay. Just giving... Okay. So I'm going to try to field questions while you guys are speaking. We'll see how this goes. Did it? Oh. Send.
I think you can send privately, right?
Yeah. I kind of want everybody to know, though.
Good call.
Okay. There we go. So that makes everybody know. Okay. 41 people so far.
I'll get to see my message.
Okay. That's weird, though. Oh. Okay. This is kind of fun. You get to?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's probably how I'll do it. Like, if they ask a question, I can answer it for everyone.
Should we start?
Yeah. We should probably.
Yeah.
Straight through?
Okay. So just unmute us.
Greetings, everyone. This is Sal Munoz with All Chicago. I am the System Implementation Manager. And here with me is...
Hi, I'm Margaret Smith. I'm a program manager at All Chicago.
And hi, I'm Gail Keller. I am the COC program coordinator with All Chicago.
And we also have several other panelists on the line that will be joining us shortly. They'll be talking throughout our presentation. So just a few housekeeping things. We are aiming to wrap this up around 4 p.m. And one thing to note is that if you do have a question, please use the question module. We will try to get to them as quickly as we possibly can. So we have three distinct sections throughout this entire webinar. We're going to be talking about 2-to-1 rematches first, followed by, I believe it was, here we go. We're going to move forward real quick. Can you click? Okay. So we're going to talk about two rematches per PSH rematch requests. Then we'll switch over to Housing System Navigators, and then we'll wrap it up with bridge housing. So if you have any questions, we will be addressing any questions you may have. Typically at the end of each topic, where we'll go through the question list and try to give you answers, as well as type them out to the question that you sent in to us. So if you have any issues in terms of, audio quality, anything like that, please also let us know. Just know that we're going to be looking at the question module, not the chat, nor the hand-raising module. So if you have a question, shoot it our way using the questions module. And we do not have any handouts for today, but we have several resources in terms of links to the help desk for HMIS, and we will also be making this webinar available as a recording. So you'll be able to access this at a later time for any individuals or colleagues of yours that need to review this information. So with that having been said, I just want to get us started with our 2-to-1 rematches. And so it'll be myself and Sal Estrada. So Sal, could you say something for us? Could you introduce yourself? Could you? And he might be staff. Sal, are you with us? Could you send us in a question? Sorry, folks. We are looking to get one of our panelists on the line, and it seems like he's not here right now. All right. So let's just go ahead and move forward with this anyway. Yeah. So let's go ahead and move forward. Click next. So I just want to provide you a little bit of context in terms of why we are talking about 2-to-1 rematches. So the Coordinated Entry Permanent Supportive Housing Workgroup developed a test to improve the flow of households into supportive housing based on challenges discussed at the CES Refinement Lab. So this entire trial is a reaction to what we had heard from the Refinement Lab. What we noticed is that we want to improve the rate in which your units get filled, and this is a trial to help address that. This is an attempt so that we can cut that down. So just to give a super brief overview, rematch requests the initial permanent housing match request will come to you on a 1-to-1 basis. So whenever you submit a match request to us, we're going to send you one client, one person to reach out to. But upon that And we always make an aim to send you the best possible candidate. The first person that we match you to should be the one. They should be the one to move forward. Unfortunately, sometimes that does not happen. So when you submit a rematch request to us, we will send you 2 matches for that unit. So that is only triggered upon your selecting a rematch request for that particular referral. So let's go ahead and dive a little bit more into it. So before we talk about the changes that will happen, I want to talk a little bit about what is currently happening. So if I could, I want to start off by talking a little bit about what it means for an initial rematch and a rematch. So the initial rematch, that's the first match that you're going to get. It's the first referral that's given to you. It's the first match sent when you indicate to us that there's a housing unit available. And as I had mentioned, we really make an aim to make this initial match the best possible match that you'll be receiving from us. And a rematch is something that you send in to us. So after a failed initial match, the moment you need another client, another referral, you send us you update the initial match's current status, their referral need status to be, we got a few questions. Okay, actually, so sorry, we got a few questions in, but I want to talk a little bit about the rematches. So what you have to understand about rematches is that it's not only indicating that you need a rematch, it's also indicating that that client is also going to need a rematch. So it's a trigger for us to know that your agency is going to have more another client, in this case 2 clients, referred out to you, but also that client who you were not able to reach or who was ineligible will also need to be matched to an appropriate project for them. So that's sort of the definition of the 2 topics that we're going to be talking about. If there are any questions, please let me know. But let's look at the timeline. So in regards to the timeline, I think y'all might have seen something like this or have an understanding of how the matching workflow sort of operates. So on the HMIS side, a client will be assessed, and when they're assessed, that client will then move on to the one list. And so when that client is on the one list, the matching team at Catholic Charities will find the appropriate project type and the appropriate organization to make a referral to. So that client that's on the one list, now they're being moved forward. And if they come up to the top of the list for the next permanent housing match, then Catholic Charities will send that match out to you, and it'll be on a 1-to-1 basis. So you'll only be receiving 1 client. And after that initial match is made, what we ask is that you answer that initial match within 2 days. So when you begin to receive a client's, when you begin to receive that initial match, what you're going to notice is that the client, when you receive that initial match, what you'll notice is that the client will then that you'll have to reach out to the client. So what we ask is that within 2 days, you change the referral status to attempting contact, and you have to give your client at least 10 days to respond to you. So within that 10 days, we're anticipating that the client will be contacted. The client may come in for an intake. They're eligible. They want to move forward with housing. At that point, you enroll them into your project. And again, enrollment does not mean I got a referral, let me enroll them into my project. No, you only enroll your client once they come in for the intake, they're deemed eligible. You make an offer of housing at either on that date or a later date, and the client accepts that offer of housing. So that is when that client should be enrolled in your project. That is when you make a project entry for that client. And then after that, once the client is housed, that is when you'll put in a housing move-in date. So this is a successful initial match. This is sort of the way that we want things to go. Obviously, this is a real world, so let's talk a little bit about what it means currently when a client is deemed ineligible or you're not able to contact them. So on instances where it's an unsuccessful match, you will be requesting a rematch. So up on top, I have those 3 bullet points just to sort of show that we're already at the initial match portion. So maybe you're already at the initial match portion, you are able to contact the client, and you find that the client is not eligible. What you'll have to do is then indicate and put a referral status on that client of rematch needed, and then it could be they're ineligible because of age, they're ineligible for XYZ, rematch needed because you weren't able to contact them, any number of things. And so what currently happens at that point is that the matching team gets notified that you requested a rematch, and the matching team will send you a new referral, and it is actually only one client that they'll send you. So as of now, whenever you request a rematch, you're getting another one-to-one match, one client to the one client/household to one unit. Now, what happens to that client is that they'll be put back onto the new client goes through the same outreach process, and the old clients are reintegrated into the list. And at that point, we also have several back-end things that will trigger them if a client has rejected offers of housing several times. Maybe they need a housing navigation assistance, something of that sort. So depending on how many times a client has gone through this, or has been deemed ineligible or has not been found, there are different sort of interventions that will kick into play. So now let's talk a little bit about the workflow that we are here to talk about, 2-to-1 rematches. And I see several questions right now. I'll go ahead and address some of these questions. So is the timeline realistic? So Jennifer, the timeline is just a reference. I don't know what you mean by realistic. It's just a reference right now. Those are the guidelines in terms of updating that referral need status. So if you leave a referral need status for several weeks that's matched a waiting housing provider, that client is being held up from getting housed because you have not updated their need status. It's pretty simple to say that, we're going to be contacting them or we gave them a call. So again, there are no real dates on the timeline. They're just sort of what the guidelines should be. And then Mary Ann, we'll be addressing that later. And Aaron, if a client is enrolled into the project but does not move in, then you would just exit that client. So at that point, you just exit that client. No need to indicate a housing move-in date or anything. So moving on to talking about the actual workflow. So we just saw what the prior or the current workflow is. Now let's talk a little bit about what 2-to-1 rematches look like. So upon your rematch request, 2 client referrals will be sent to you. So when the initial match, for whatever reason, does not work out, instead of just getting another 1-to-1 match, you will get 2 clients this time. And those clients can either be, again, they'll be representing either themselves or just the general household. And the data entry portion, we're aiming to be as unobtrusive as possible. Really what we're asking you to do is what you're already doing, which is keeping track of that client's need status, referral need statuses, keeping it up to date. There are no new need statuses to keep track of, nothing of that sort. Everything is already the same. Really what you're going to have to do that you might have never done before is outreach to 2 clients instead of 1, and then update the client that didn't receive the housing. So if you're talking with the client who might have gotten a little late to you, if that client was then, they say, oh, you called my old number, then we would ask that you update that client's contact information so that on the next opportunity, that client will be reached out to effectively. And both of the clients must be provided the same opportunities and time to respond. So again, there comes that 10-day window of trying to get in contact with the client. So what we are really anticipating you to be able to do is give them both their fair shot at getting the housing. Now, if one client comes through quicker and is moving through the intake process and is collecting all their documentation, and it seems like everything would be ready to go, you're able to confirm their eligibility, then you can make that safe assumption that once you get to the point where the client has been deemed eligible, they have then been you've made the offer of housing and they have accepted that offer. At that point, you would enroll them into your project. And the other client, if they call you after the other client, or if they just for whatever reason are not able to get to the offices or to get the documentation in a quick manner that the other client did not, in those instances, you would let the client know that the other unit was not available, but that the next opportunity for housing, they'll be on a one-to-one match. So when both matches come to you, they'll be coming to you with a status of matched awaiting housing providers. And again, this is just a reminder that we really ask you to maintain the referral need statuses up to date as much as you possibly can. It's super important that you keep all the client need statuses up to date, because if you don't, then that client will not be eligible to be potentially housed. So just keep that in mind, folks. We really need you to keep up to date with all the referral need statuses. And again, this would be a barrier for clients if your agency is not keeping up to date with those referral need statuses. And so I want to talk a little bit about the timeline. So we have two clients here. That's going to be client A and client B. So just to give you a sense, client A is going to move forward with housing, whereas client B will not be moving forward with housing. They will have come in a little too late. So we start off with the initial match, and just a little bit of shorthand. We're assuming that the initial match was found to be unsuccessful. At that point, you're going to submit a rematch request, and this would be done by selecting any referral status starting with rematch. The matching team will send 2 referrals to you. So each of those referrals will have a status of matched awaiting housing provider. So in that instance, again, we would like you to update the referral need status within 2 days to let us know that you're trying to contact that client, that you've sent an email or you've given a call, whatever it might be. And then at that point, we are going to get to the provider contact. So once you update the referral need status to be attempted contact, you must give the clients at least 10 days to respond to your contact attempts. So in this instance, we're assuming that client A is responsive to the contacts, whereas client B has not been reached yet. And so client A is moving through the process relatively quickly. And moving over to this one. And then we find that once client A has come through the intake, where they're found eligible and they enroll into the project. So they're deemed eligible, and you go ahead and send them you make them an offer of housing, and they accept that offer. So at that point, the provider enrolls the client into your project, and you should update the referral status to read enrolled. Now, let's assume that client B finally manages to call, but the unit has already gone to that other client. So what will happen there is that you will let the client know that, the unit is no longer available, but to have this as an opportunity for them to update any information of theirs. And in particular, the information that we need updated would be their contact information. If there's a better cell phone number, if there's a better person to call who they're staying with currently. So that's what you want to keep in mind when you're talking with a client who may have come a little too late when the unit is no longer available. And then for client A, obviously the provider puts them into housing, and if they actually move into the housing, you would indicate the housing move-in date and give a referral status of housed. So we have a question, and I'm going to go ahead and look into them. That's a really good. So that's a great one, Mary. Mary asks, what happens if, in working with them simultaneously, both participants end up being eligible for a program, but we only have one opening? So Mary, that's a great question. I think what you would want to do is reach out to Catholic Charities in El Chicago, and we would work with you to determine which client would serve best. We are going to be updating some of our protocols on this, and so this is one of those things that we are developing a protocol for. So Mary, as it gets set in stone, I think right now what you would want to do is maybe shoot an email to HMIS at All Chicago. That'd be a quick place to begin with, and then we'll get you the answer there. As of right now, we're developing the protocols to address scenarios like this. And then Melanie asks if there are going to be slides provided after the webinar, and yes, we're going to be sending out the slides. Oh, Aaron asked another great question. If client B manages to call and you have another vacancy with no match, so I'm assuming maybe it's something where you were prepping the unit, you would actually want to reach out to Catholic Charities, and we'll work with you there, Aaron. So that's actually addressed in one of the Q&As that Catholic Charities has. So you would reach out to Catholic Charities, and we would work with you there. So again, folks, this is a trial, and we're developing the protocols, and we're going to be learning a lot of lessons. It's a very malleable thing that we're doing right now, but all of these are great questions thus far. So I'm going to go ahead and get back into the presentation. We have a few more slides before we move on to system navigation. But this is another listing of the steps involved in going through the 2-to-1 matching process if you don't like fancy timelines, or if you don't like fancy little graphics with dashes. So essentially, the provider is going to be submitting a rematch request if the first match does not result in housing the person or the household. Then the matching team will be sending you 2 households. The following up emails for each match. So follow-up emails will be sent by Catholic Charities regarding the 2 matches. And then at that point, the PSH provider will reach out to both households simultaneously, and you'll screen both for eligibility if that does come to the case. After that, you'll move ahead with the first household to appear to be eligible though both households will be asked and supported to gather documentation. And once you're able to enroll a household, the HMIS need status has to be updated to be enrolled. And those that are not enrolled but are still eligible, you'll want to update the referral need status to be client engaged, unit not available. So what's most important there is that that's telling us that this client was able to engage with you, that their number is current and they're looking to be housed. It's just that the unit wasn't available. And so at that point, that's telling us sort of a trigger for us to know that the client is interested in getting housing, that they're easily accessible. It's just that we have to connect them with the right resource at the right time. And so here's a little bit of Q&A, and I want to see if Sal is actually on the call right now, and it does not seem like he is. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and keep moving on. So So what'll happen? These Q&As. I cannot move this. Can you move this for me? Sorry. Okay. So what'll happen when the second eligible household is not able to be housed due to having only one unit? You're going to give them a rematch needed, the client engaged, unit no longer available. And at this point, Catholic Charities will know and be able to see that client's need status, and they'll prioritize them so that the next match they get to is another one-to-one match. And we also want to clarify that this 2-to-1 matching will only work for rematches. It is not an initial match where we'll send you 2 clients. This only occurs when you ask for a rematch. And then if you don't update the referral need status of one of the households, then you are really doing that client a disservice. That client will not be matched. They don't move forward. So we really need you all to be on the tips of your toes in regards to the referral need statuses of each client. And here we go. So Aaron, this answers your question regarding if you have multiple openings and a household is matched to one unit, but that other unit's still available. You'll want to let Catholic Charities know so that they can match you via HMIS. We want everything to go through HMIS, but if you let Catholic Charities know, they'll be able to set that up. And so, again, just to review what the new responsibilities would be, you're going to be doing outreach to 2 households to learn if they're eligible or are both eligible. You'll be supporting both households in following up with this housing opportunity. So you'll be reaching out, you'll be assisting them and sort of giving them guidance as to where they have to find documentation, etc. And then you'll have to update the referral need status and do a chronic verification packet for those households that are non-chronic. So those non-chronic households who are not eligible, so that we can make sure that so that you or the other colleagues that work in permanent housing do not get that client once more when they are in fact ineligible for your project type. So now I want to turn it over to the Housing System Navigation team.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sal. My name is Brett Pinner from the Corporation for Supportive Housing. And I'm going to offer a brief refresher of the Housing System Navigation Program, and then I'm going to throw it back over to Sal, who will walk us through how to request navigation supports in HMIS. So if you can go to the next slide.
I'm just curious, folks, can you hear Brett? If you could type in a question to let us know that you can hear Brett? Okay, great. We're getting confirmation that your people can hear you, Brett.
Perfect. Thank you, Sal. So the Housing System Navigation Project provides supportive services to households matched to housing through the coordinated entry system, with the purpose of ensuring that eligible households with high barriers move into housing. And so the goal of the navigator is to ensure that a household can follow the required steps to move into their housing opportunity. And supports that are offered through the project include ensuring that a household is able to participate in housing appointments through either providing transportation or transportation assistance. A navigator can assist in collecting documentation that may be required by the housing provider for move-in, or assisting the household in obtaining any documentation that they may be missing. And navigation can also assist by providing emotional support around ambivalence for the housing opportunity, or any sort of advocacy related to their housing opportunity. And so next slide. So the role of a housing system navigator is really complementary to the role of a housing provider. The housing navigator and housing provider really work together to support the household in the process of entering the housing project and moving into housing in cases where the household would not likely be able to do so without additional supports. And so a few tasks that a system navigator cannot do include finding clients who cannot be found by housing providers, verifying chronic homeless status, and providing housing location services. These are tasks that are really reserved for the housing provider. On the other hand, a system navigator can serve as a point of contact for housing providers to work collaboratively to support the housing process. The navigator can attend housing-related appointments to support the client, such as, like I said, bringing the client to housing intake appointments or meeting with medical professionals to verify disability. And again, a navigator can assist in obtaining ID and other documentation. And next slide. So eligibility for housing system navigation, there are 3 criteria that we look for. The first is that the household is an individual who is facing chronic homelessness or is a family facing extreme barriers, including chronic homelessness. Second, the household is not currently connected to a case manager or outreach professional who can offer these navigation supports. And the housing provider does not have the capacity to provide the services needed to ensure that the household can move into their unit. And the final eligibility criteria is that the housing provider has established contact with the participant and is struggling to follow up with the household to access documents and arrange housing appointments. And so that is just a brief overview of the system navigation program. I believe we have our email address at the end, and you can reach out with any other questions about navigation. And with that, I'm going to throw it back over to Sal to walk us through how to request navigation in HMIS.
All right, folks, so we are going to go ahead and hop into HMIS real quick. So I am going to exit out of here. And let's go ahead. My password is a series of dots. And I'm going to go ahead and actually... So I already have my client's ID. Let's assume that I am a permanent housing provider and I have been working with a client who has had who I've had difficulty contacting, who does not necessarily move forward with the process, and they just need some more assistance. In that instance, once you have your client ID, I'm going to go to Service Transaction, View Entire Service History, and I'm going to respond to this referral. Look right up here. There's a client who was referred out to me by the Chicago Coordinated Entry System. And again, I'm the housing provider, so I need this client to have the additional resource of housing system navigation. And so at that end, I will just click on the pencil that's next to my organization, All Chicago, the referral. And if you need to add notes, when you do add notes, please click here, this pencil right up next to need information. At that point, you'll be able to add whatever notes you need to. But let's go back to the referral. So here is the test note that I left on there, and that's something that we ask that you do whenever you're doing the outreach for the client. But To update the need status, you're going to go down to need status, and you are going to look for CES CES client engaged housing system navigation needed. So that is the 5th line down, CES client engaged housing system navigation needed. You'll click on that and just click on save and exit. So again, one thing that we ask you to do is actually add a note. So before you even change the need status, you'll go ahead and add a note here saying why the client needs to have system navigation or some of the attempts that you've made, and then you will update the need status. So we'll click on save and exit, and at that point, the client is now marked to receive these services. Now, I'm going to go back to our presentation. Brett, is there anything else to add? Oh.
No, I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
And it doesn't, let's see. So we do have a question here. Could one use a navigator to locate a referred client? And that's coming from Marianne Morris. Brett, I'll let you sort of take that over.
No. So navigators cannot be used to locate a client that the housing provider has not already been able to contact. So once you have made the initial contact with the client and have determined that they could use some extra supports, that is when you would go into HMIS to request navigation.
All right. So with that having been, okay, we got another one in here by Emily Peterson. How long should it take a system navigator to contact you after you make a request?
So we will make the navigation match within 2 business days, and an email will be sent out. It'll look just like the match that is made by Catholic Charities, and it'll include the housing provider as well as the navigation provider. And so after that, they should be reaching out within a couple days as well with any follow-up.
All right, folks. So any further questions? Anyone else? All right. So I'm going to hand it off to my wonderful colleague, Margaret. Margaret, you are here. So I'm literally handing the computer over to you.
Thanks, Sal.
On the top, actually. Oh, drag it back. And then, drag it back. Click on that.
Oh, okay.
And it disappears. Yeah.
Sorry, just some tech issues there. Okay, so I'm actually going to talk a little bit about bridge housing in partnership with Nicole Goon from the Center for Housing and Health. Like Sal mentioned, my name is Margaret Smith, and I'm with All Chicago. So a little bit about bridge housing. So bridge can be a really powerful tool used to effectively bridge from homelessness to a permanent housing solution. And we want to use bridge units for particularly vulnerable and hard to reach individuals. So bridge units are essentially units that can be accessed temporarily. So before someone is able to move into a PSH unit, they would be able to access a bridge unit in order to exit homelessness more quickly. Generally speaking, bridge units are furnished SRO units, so it's a pretty it's a simple, very temporary solution that we definitely see as being a good solution for exiting homelessness quickly, but very much as a bridge to a more permanent housing solution or a permanent housing solution. And in general, we see Bridge as a tool for facilitating a smoother transition to PSH. So Bridge can be, like I mentioned, Bridge can be a really good tool for particularly using with difficult to reach individuals. Once they're housed in a Bridge unit, they can be a lot easier to find, literally, and move that into their PSH unit when that becomes available. So just a little bit about the structure of our Bridge units and kind of where do the Bridge units come from? So they're funded by ESG Rapid Rehousing Funds. Those are HUD Emergency Solutions grant funds that come to the city of Chicago. And as All Chicago, we serve as the system coordinator for those funds. And the Bridge units, the Bridge funds in particular, are coordinated by the Center for Housing and Health. And they work with Heartland Alliance Health in actually providing outreach case management for the individuals who are enrolled in our Bridge program. So I'm gonna actually turn it over to Nicole Goon, who coordinates the Bridge program at the Center for Housing and Health, to tell you a little bit about what actually happens in the Bridge program and Bridge eligibility.
Thank you, Margaret. My name is Nicole, and I'm with the Center for Housing and Health. I coordinate the Rapid Housing Bridge program at the center, and I will be discussing the eligibility requirements for Bridge. Sam, would you be able to move it to the next slide? Thank you. For Bridge, the eligibility, to be eligible for Bridge, the individual must be unsheltered, which means the individual must be living in a shelter or a place not meant for human habitation, experiencing chronic homelessness, approved for a permanent supportive housing program, and a single person household, age 18 and older. In addition, as what Margaret said, the individual will be provided monthly case management services by the Bridge case manager from Heartland Alliance Health to help maintain housing stability. And this is a brief overview of the Bridge program, and now I'll turn it back to Sal, who will walk you through how to request a Bridge unit using the referral needs status update.
So folks, there is actually, in our example, we do not have one quite yet, so we don't have a specific Bridge referral need status, and I will be making that go live later today. So please be on the lookout for that Bridge status in terms of it'll be very similar to how we updated the need status for housing navigation. So if we look back at our client, the process once more will be going to that client's ID, clicking on service transactions, viewing the entire history. Then we'll take a look at the referrals. And again, you can assume that this client was referred to my PSH project. We'll open and edit the referral. Please update any notes you may have. Go back to referral. And then again, at this point, under need status, you would be looking for the Bridge need status, but again, we'll be inputting that shortly. So the need status will likely be CES Bridge, something of that sort. Okay. So again, very similar to how we had indicated someone needs system navigation, where it's client engaged housing system navigation needed. it'll be the same process for the bridge project. And I'm going to turn it back to Margaret because there are a few questions here. So let me open up the PowerPoint. There we go.
So there are a couple of questions. So I have a question from Aaron asking how many bridge units are in the system. So we actually right now have, or either right now or we will very soon have a capacity of 45 bridge units. So we're actually at a point where we need to get a fair amount of people into bridge units. So we definitely are trying to get people in. So yeah, so there is definitely capacity right now, and that is the full capacity. That kind of I would say it fluctuates. So it's not always 45 units. It really depends on the funding that's available currently. And then we have another question. Does being in bridge units affect the time the client has been homeless? And are they considered housing? So it is not considered a permanent housing solution. So when when an individual moves into a bridge unit, they would not have a move-in date entered into HMIS. And they retain their chronic homeless status. So I hope that answers your question, and if it doesn't, please let me know.
And folks, I think that is it for our meeting today, or rather our webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us right now. I think we'll be sticking around for 5 minutes. But what we have up here in resources is going to be the Housing System Navigation Workflow article. We have a 2-to-1 rematching article, all in the help desk. We also have a help desk article set up for counterreports, and that's important for taking your referrals, things of that nature. Another thing that when we send out the slides, we'll make sure to add is the referral needs status glossary, which gives you sort of definitions for what each of the need statuses represents. And that is it from myself. Brett or Margaret, are there any final thoughts? And again, folks, please send in your questions right now so we can address them. So if you could go over So we got a question from Emily asking Margaret and Nicole to go over the eligibility for bridge units again.
We'll just take it back a couple of slides so we can see that. Yeah, so these are the basic eligibility factors for bridge units. We're really targeting unsheltered individuals for our bridge units, and individuals experiencing chronic homelessness. And like Nicole mentioned, really the point of bridge is to serve as a bridge to a permanent housing solution. So the individual must be approved for a PSH program before they can be enrolled in the bridge program. We can only, the bridge units can only accommodate single person households due to the fact that the bridge program does make extensive use of furnished SRO units. So it really isn't appropriate for households greater than single persons. So yeah, those are the basic eligibility requirements for this program.
So send in those questions, folks. And again, we're going to be emailing the slides out to everyone after this. So just be on the lookout for that in your inbox. And here is a slide of all the contact information for every single sort of stakeholder in the Chicago Coordinated Entry System. Yeah, feel free to email any one of us. So we'll be wrapping up in 2 minutes. If you have questions, send them in. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us and have a great afternoon.
So it looks like we received one additional question asking, can Bridge be used for a family? And the answer is Bridge is only used for single individuals. Great questions, everyone. Thank you so much for sending them in. Also, Nicole, if you have anything to add about Bridge housing, feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Margaret. As of right now, I don't have anything to add. Thank you, though.
Okay, well, it looks like that is all of our questions for the afternoon then. We'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and feel free to email in if you do have any other questions that come up afterwards.
Audience view. Sharing, actually. There you go. And you can actually X out, and it'll end it.
Okay, cool. End webinar.